Hello everybody and welcome back to yet another Logan Blackman Show YouTube video. As you can tell by the title, we have finally gotten here. We are finally doing the official NFC quarterback Mount Rushmore video. I know in the AFC video we talked about doing it a week after that, but the US squad was getting released for the 2025 Gold Cup, so I wanted to touch on that a little bit. We did a squad prediction video, we did a squad reaction video, so make sure to go check out those two videos. I'll link those down in the description below, and while you're down there, make sure to check out all the different links to all the different social media accounts, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that great stuff. Make sure to check out the podcast and Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Make sure to check out the blog post at theloganblackmanshow.com. Make sure to also subscribe to the podcast YouTube channel, which will also be linked down below. And make sure, most importantly, to give this video a thumbs up if you're enjoying it so far. But again, if you're not very trusting, if you want to wait till the end to give this video a thumbs up, I understand that. So I will remind you to do that at the end, but also just make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss any more fantastic Logan Blackman Show content. And I'm hoping that this video is a little bit shorter than the last one. I didn't really realize until I got done doing the video or recording the video how long the NFC video actually was. I think it was around an hour, like 56 minutes or something like that. So this one, I'm hoping to speed up the process a little bit, but still give you the same great content that we're used to here on the Logan Blackman Show. And as we always do here on the channel, when we're talking about the NFL, we're talking about teams and divisions and stuff like that, we go north, south, east, west. NFC North, we start off with the Chicago Bears, the only team in NFL history to not have a 4,000-yard passer, which is insane given how old and historic the Chicago Bears franchise is. They have the most Hall of Fame players out of any team in the NFL, and yet they are the only team to not have a single 4,000-yard passer. Like, you're looking at Sid Luckman all the way back in the day as the greatest quarterback in Bears history. The other quarterbacks that we're talking about, like Jim McMahon, who started 11 games in the 15-1 season when they won the Super Bowl in '85. Like, there's not a great lineage of quarterbacks in Chicago Bears history, but the guy I'm going to start off with is a guy that I think could possibly be the guy to get them to that 4,000-yard barrier, and that's the guy who was drafted first overall last year, and that's Caleb Williams. And for some people out there, that might be insane. To go out there and say Caleb Williams is already on the Mount Rushmore Bears quarterbacks in the 21st century, if you look at the quarterbacks and the people that we're going to talk about, it's not that crazy to think about. Like, again, he's only been in the league for 1 year, and yes, the Bears did not really meet the expectations that a lot of people had out for them last year, but Caleb Williams, despite that, still put forth a solid rookie season, broke Bears records in yards, completions, attempts, set a Bears rookie rushing record as well. Like, he has the joint most 300-yard plus passing games in Chicago Bears history in a season. Like, he has 4 of those games. He's also the first rookie Bears quarterback to throw for multiple 300-plus yard games, and he had the longest consecutive streak without throwing an interception. And I don't want to project too much here, but I think at the end of the day, with all the records that he's already broken, given the fact that they added in Ben Johnson, the fact they brought in Luther Burden and Colson Level into the draft as well, I think this is the year that Caleb Williams passes for 4,000 yards. I don't think that's crazy to say. He's already shattered the Bears rookie passing records, which weren't really that insane to begin with anyways. I think Mitch Trubisky held the record. I don't even think he had 2,000 yard passing for the Bears rookie passing record, which again shows how rough this position's been for the Chicago Bears. But I would say this year Caleb Williams does get over that 4,000 yard mark, and we have the first Bears quarterback to throw for 4,000 yards. We have the final team to throw for 4,000 yards in the NFL, and Caleb Williams, I think, is super talented. I think he's very polarizing. You get a lot of differing opinions about him, about his rookie season in general. It doesn't help the fact that Jaden Daniels, the guy that was taking a pick after him, had a quote-unquote generational rookie season where he led his team to the NFC Championship game. We may or may not talk about him in a little bit, but I think Caleb Williams, though he's only played 1 year, given the Bears selections that we have available for us, I think it makes all the sense in the world to include him in this list. And the next guy on here is Jay Cutler, the guy we talked about in the last video, in the AFC Mount Rushmore video. Jay Cutler is the Bears' career passing yards leader. Jay Cutler is the great, if we're talking about statistically, Jay Cutler is the greatest Bears quarterback of all time. Statistically, just statistically. I'm not talking about like legacy and stuff like that, because I think a lot of Bears fans, when he was playing for them, they viewed him very frustratingly. I mean, we got the NFC Championship game in there where he went down with the injury. No one knew what his injury was. We just kept getting shots of him on the sideline, standing there, so people were like thinking about him. Did he quit on the team? But it came out that Lovie Smith actually pulled him out of the game. But that shot of Jay Cutler standing there on the sideline, I'm sure has burned a hole in a lot of Bears fans' hearts because of your guy that You traded for him from Denver. He was going to be the guy, and he just didn't end up reaching this levels that we thought he would get when we saw him in Denver. Like, he's the franchise record holder in completions in a season and career attempts in a career and a season. He leads them in yards, touchdowns, all that great stuff. But again, was just frustrating in Chicago because you saw the talent there. It just never broke through like we were really hoping it would. And the next guy on here, the next two guys, I guess you could say, are the guys that Jay Cutler ultimately replaced. The first guy I want to touch on here is the guy he replaced replaced initially, I guess, or the closest one he replaced, and that's Kyle Orton. And Brian Urlacher, he came out and said if Kyle Orton was the starting quarterback for the Bears, they would have won a Super Bowl because Kyle Orton didn't lose you games. Kyle Orton was a consistent quarterback from a talent standpoint, not even close to Jay Cutler. But if you have a defense that was as good as the Bears with like Peanut Tillman, Brian Urlacher, Lance Briggs, all those great players, you just need a guy, really. You look like the 2000s Ravens with like Trent Dilfer. And he had 2 full seasons as the starter. He was the Pro Football Writers Association all rookie team in 2005. Like, he was a solid player, had a very good NFL career, state of Iowa native as well, though he went to Southeast Polk, which, we won't hold too much against him, I guess, at this point in time. Bill's legend as well. But yeah, Kyle Orton comes in on this list, was obviously involved in the trade to Denver to get Jay Cutler to Chicago. And the guy he replaced was, I guess you kind of like went toe-to-toe with, is Rex Grossman. And that's the level I'm talking about here, where Rex Grossman is in the Mount Rushmore of Chicago Bears quarterbacks of the 21st century. He only had 1 season where he was the real starter in Chicago. He started 16 games when they went on to go to the Super Bowl, but it wasn't because they didn't go to the Super Bowl because of Rex Grossman. They went again because of the defense we talked about. Rex Grossman in that season, 23 touchdowns, 20 interceptions. Never started more than 5 games other than that season and 1 other time in Chicago. He was there for 6 years. He was a first-round draft pick in Chicago and just wasn't very good. Long and short of it, just wasn't very good. Like, even in that Super Bowl run, he had 3 interceptions and 3 touchdowns on the way to losing to the Colts in the Super Bowl. He got them to a Super Bowl. He was the guy that helped them get to a Super Bowl. No other Bears quarterback in the 21st century can say that. Jay Cutler didn't do that. Jay Cutler's a much better quarterback than Rex Grossman, but he did help them get there. However much you want to say he was responsible for that, his name was on the group project, so we have to give him some credit for that. So that is the Bears Mount Rushmore, but you could have included like Justin Fields in there. I'm sure a lot of Bears fans out there would love to include Justin Fields in there. It's Trubisky, but I know a lot of Bears fans probably won't include him in there. We had Jim Miller in there for a hot second. And you can also throw in Josh McCown, Caleb Haney, Matt Barkley. Like, you could throw in a couple others if you really wanted to, but that's the Mount Rushmore that I have for the Chicago Bears. Moving on to the next team, the Detroit Lions. First one on here is Jared Goff, the most successful period in Detroit Lions history in regards to the Super Bowl era, because I know they had like Bobby Lane back in the day and stuff like that, but in regards to the modern era, this is the most successful period in Detroit Lions history. I mean, they're just coming up a season where they won 15 games. And Jared Goff, though he got to a Super Bowl with the Rams, though he went to an NFC Championship game, the Rams ended up trading him for Matt Stafford, who's also on this list. But Jared Goff, when he got traded to the Lions, he was sent there to die. That was pretty much the long and short. Like, Jared Goff, bye. Your career's done. You're going to the most trash team in the NFL. You're going to die there. Have fun there. But Jared Goff, not only, and you could say this about Dan Campbell and the rest of that Lions team in general, not only did they not go there to die, they've thrived there. We talk about the 15-win season, had a 12-win season there, had an NFC Championship game appearance. Like, the Lions are one of the best teams in the NFL, one of the most explosive teams in the NFL, and a big part of that is because of Jared Goff. He was a top 5 MVP candidate this past season, and he's a 2-time Pro Bowl. Like, Jared Goff, I commend a lot for what he's done with his career since getting traded to the Lions. I think he's been on Hard Knocks like 15 times. Like, he just, wherever he's at, it seems Hard Knocks all. Except for this year, because the freaking Bills are on Hard Knocks this year. But the guy he got traded for is Matt Stafford, as we talked about before, already on this list. 5,000-yard passer for the Detroit Lions. Probably the greatest Lions quarterback of all time. Should I say probably, or he is? Because Jared Goff, again, in regard to talking about talent, Matt Stafford is much more talented than Jared Goff, but Jared Goff's on the winningest team in Lions history, so maybe we can have a conversation. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe Bobby Lane's still considered the greatest quarterback in Lions history. Maybe we could throw Scott Mitchell Maybe Chuck Long. Chuck Long. We got Iowa boy Chuck Long in there. Obviously wasn't really great with the Lions, but that's beside the point. That's beside the point. But Matt Stafford, yes, obviously gets a spot on this list. Like, he was the first overall draft pick by a team that just went 0-16. The first 0-16 and 16 team in NFL history. He was the first overall pick. Talk about the 5,000-yard season. Had a 4,900-yard season in there as well. 4,000-plus yard season with the Detroit Lions, and he had some good play. He obviously had Calvin Johnson there, made Kenny Galladay look like a good receiver. Like, Matt Stafford was awesome with the Lions, battled through injuries and stuff. We obviously know that famous clip, I think it was against the Browns, where he's running off the field like, because he hurt his shoulder, but still went in there, delivered a game-winning drive. Like, Matt Stafford was awesome. Everybody loves Matt Stafford in Detroit, and everybody was thrilled that he got a Super Bowl championship with the LA Rams. But yeah, he was awesome in Detroit. Like, he's the franchise record holder in every single statistical category you could have. But again, much like the Bears, it's not that big of a mountain to climb in regards to getting up the statistical ladder in Detroit Lions history. And no offense to the next guy on here, but we got a pretty steep downward trajectory here. We talked about the guy who was the first overall pick by an 0-16 team. The guy who's next on this list started for the 0-16 Lions, and that's Jon Kitna. And Jon Kitna, I didn't really know we would talk about Jon Kitna this much in this series, but he did start 16 games twice throughout his time with the Detroit Lions, and he did register back-to-back 4,000-plus yard season. He led the league in completions in 07. He led the league in interceptions in 08. We don't need to talk about that. we don't need to talk about that. But Jon Kitna was a solid quarterback with the Lions, though he did start 4 games for the 0-16 team. And I just realized I got my years around. It moved them back, like completions in 06, interceptions in 07, because I think he only started 4 games in the 0-16 season, but I got to give him a shout out here. And the next one on here, I struggle with. I did almost throw in Charlie Batch like we did for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I ultimately went with Joey Harrington, or Joey Sunshine, as the Detroit press called him, because the dude never seemed to be really that upset with how bad this team was. He was the 3rd overall pick by the Lions in 2002. He was a 4-year starter in there as well. Had a 3,000-plus yard season in 04, 19 touchdowns. I think it was the only season he had where he had more touchdowns than interceptions. Again, we're not really dealing with a whole lot here. Until Matt Stafford got there, we weren't really dealing with a long pantheon of great quarterbacks with the Detroit Lions in this specific era of Lions football. Like, along with Charlie Batch, you got Sean Hill. Dan Orlovsky is in that conversation. Well, I mean, just for running out of the back of the end zone, he deserves an honorable mention shot here. But the next team we got on here, completely different in regards to their quarterback legacies than the previous two. That's the Green Bay Packers. And we've obviously got Jordan Love, who's kicking it there right now, doing one of the better young quarterbacks in the league, one of the more talented quarterbacks in the league right now. We got Aaron Rodgers, 4-time MVP, Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl MVP, all that great stuff. The greatest Packers quarterback of all time, depending on who you ask, because you obviously got Bart Starr back in the day, and you got the next guy on this list, Brett Favre. And Brett Favre's time with Green Bay obviously was split up between the 90s and 2000s. Obviously, his time in the 90s was better than it was in the 2000s. That's not saying anything that Brett Favre was bad in the 2000s by any stretch. But if you win 3 straight MVPs and a Super Bowl, and you don't do that in the 2000s, yeah, I would say your 90s time is a lot better than your 2000s time. But again, it's not saying anything bad about Brett Favre, one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time. But Brett Favre in the 2000s just wasn't the same guy, and we obviously saw him play for a couple other teams in there. Might talk about him a little bit later, but he definitely deserves a spot in this list. Like, he led the league in touchdowns in 2003. Yes, he led the league in interceptions one time in there. Got them to an NFC Championship game when they lost the eventual Super Bowl champion New York Giants in there. But Brett Favre, yes, he was second team All-Pro a couple times in there. He deserves a spot in this list. And this last one I struggle with because, again, you got a team that had Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love. There's not really a lot of other quarterbacks to choose from there. I did go with Matt Flynn for the Matt Flynn game alone, but he was a very reliable backup for Aaron Rodgers throughout his time in Green Bay. Like, the Matt Flynn game, it has its own freaking Wikipedia page. Like, it's just a random ass game. Like, he had 6 touchdowns, 480 freaking yards in this game. Like, the Matt Flynn game got him a contract in Seattle. Now, he didn't really do much with that contract afterwards, but he deserves a spot in this Mount Rushmore section. Your only other options really here are Brett Hundley and Tim Boyle, who might be pound for pound the worst quarterback of all time that's made it to this level. But those are your only real options. Unless I'm completely forgetting about somebody. Like, you got Matt Hasselbeck, but he never played there. Like, I don't even know if he even got to the 2000s with the Packers. But we're not really dealing with a whole lot with the Green Bay Packers. We got 3 really good options. And then we've got that last spot where we kind of struggle with. And the last division on here is the Minnesota Vikings. And this one there was a couple guys that I looked at and like, I could make a case for throwing on here. I could really make a case for throwing him on here. But the first guy on here is Captain Kirk. It's Kirk Cousins. He starts this list off. One of the more consistent quarterbacks in the league throughout his time with the Vikings. Now, when he first signed that contract, it was kind of seen as like a head-scratching move. But when you looked at contracts at the time for quarterbacks and looked at the free agent market at that point, you had to kind of overpay. And Kirk Cousins, I would say, I mean, he might not have delivered a Super Bowl or anything, but Kirk Cousins definitely lived up to the contract that he was given. He was, again, one of the better quarterbacks in the league throughout his time in Minnesota. Like, he was there for 6 seasons, registered over 4,000 yards 4 times, was a 3-time Pro Bowler, registered 30-plus touchdowns 3 times. Like, until he tore his Achilles, he was an ever-present with the Vikings. It definitely deserves a spot in this list. And I'm going to bring up Brett Favre. Again, one of his best statistical seasons of the 2000s was with this Vikings team. Obviously, the NFC Championship game against the Saints, a lot of Vikings fans will like to forget about that game. You got the Paul Allen call when he throws the interception back across the field. But Brett Favre, coming from the Jets, was not expected to be as good as what he was with the Minnesota Vikings. You look at some of the plays that he made, some of the numbers that he put up, like 4,200 yards passing, 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions his first season. Now, his second season was not as good. Obviously got hurt, but ended up retiring after that. But Brett Favre, for the feeling that I'm sure Vikings fans had, seeing him line up for them, knowing what it did to Packers fans who absolutely loved and adored him, that had to be worth that just made everything worth it. That made everything worth it. But Brett Favre, definitely on this list. Next one on here is Dante Culpepper, a guy they drafted. The first 2 guys we talked about, they didn't draft. They got in free agency. So the guy Dante Culpepper, we talked about when I was recording the show last time for the podcast. You can check that down in the description below. Randy Moss literally told him, just throw it as far as you can, and I'll go get it. No one can overthrow me. That was what Randy Moss said. Dante Culpepper tried him, and Randy Moss still was able to get under the ball, catch the ball, score tie. It was in practice. It wasn't or maybe in warmups for a game or something like that. I can't remember exactly. But Dante Culpepper, he was a good quarterback. Had a very, very strong, big body quarterback, decently mobile in there as well. Like, he led the league in passing touchdowns in 2000. Had 39 passing touchdowns in 2003 as well. And again, like we talked about, dual threat quarterback, over 600 yards rushing in 2002. Big body dude, strong arm dude. Obviously went down to the Miami Dolphins, which a lot of Dolphins fans could probably feel a little bit hard done by because they didn't go after Drew Brees instead, which is why Nick Saban ended up going to Alabama. So what if the Dolphins get Drew Brees instead of Culpepper? Does Saban stay with the Dolphins? If he gets his guy, does he stay with the Dolphins? Another big mystery in NFL history. Ooh, bar. And then the last one we got on here, I did struggle with. I did almost throw in Sam Darnold for last season, but I ultimately went with Case Keenum because he was only there for 1 year, much like Sam Darnold, but you could argue that's the best moment, or like the most iconic moment in the 21st century for the Minnesota Vikings, the Minneapolis Miracle, where he hits Stephon Diggs down the near sideline and scores the touchdown against the Saints. Now, what happened after that in Philadelphia, maybe they don't want to talk about that as much, but Case Keenum, with Teddy Bridgewater recovering from his knee injury, with Sam Bradford getting hurt, getting thrusted in the starting job and putting up numbers that we didn't really expect from him, turning that into a 2-year contract with the Denver Broncos the next offseason, everything worked out for Case Keenum during that season. The Vikings didn't really struggle with injuries that much either, and Case Keenum was playing at a very, very high level that, again, no one really saw coming. But he had 3,500 yards, 22 touchdowns, 7 picks, and unlike Sam Darnold was a former number 3 overall pick. Case Keenum was undrafted. Like, this was not anything that, like, people knew there was talent in Sam Darnold. It was just a matter of that they could actually realize that, and he had a good support system around him. Like, it didn't matter if Case Keenum had a good support system. Nobody expected him to throw for 3,500 yards. No one expected that. I don't care if even his mom said that. He put up insane numbers at Houston, but that was a long time ago. To go into Minnesota with the quarterback situation that they had with Bradford and Bridgewater both coming off injuries, to put up those numbers, to have the Minneapolis Miracle NFC Championship game be damned, that is why I put him on this list. And you've also got, again, we got Sam Bradford, Bridgewater you could throw on here, Sam Darnold, you've got, who else could we throw on here? Brad Johnson, Christian Ponder, Tavares Jackson. Like, you have other options, maybe J.J. McCarthy eventually, but I think that is my main Mount Rushmore for the Minnesota Vikings. So again, Kirk Cousins, Brett Favre, Dante Culpepper and Case Keenum. And then moving on to the next division, North-South, we start up with the Atlanta Falcons. Much like we talked about with the Packers, it starts off fairly easy. Like, the number one guy on here is Matt Ryan. I know there's going to be a lot of people that say Michael Vick is the greatest quarterback in Falcons history, but it's just Matt Ryan. Like, he won an MVP in 2016, 4,900 yards passing, 38 touchdowns, 7 picks, went to a Super Bowl. Obviously, the 28-3 thing happened, but Matt Ryan, for his time in Atlanta, was one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. Like, he holds the franchise record wins, completions, attempts, yards, all that great stuff. Had 10 straight 4,000-plus yard passing seasons. Like, Matt Ryan with Julio Jones, like, his first play in the NFL was a touchdown. Like, that, he couldn't really start off better than that, so it had to go downhill after that. But even in that Super Bowl run, when they lost to the Patriots, he had 9 touchdowns, no picks in that playoff run. So Matt Ryan definitely deserves a spot in this list. Next one, obviously, is Michael Vick, one of the most electrifying player in the NFL. The first quarterback to ever rush for 1,000 yards in a season. Obviously got arrested for the dogfighting situation, but Michael Vick was the dude in the NFL. We obviously got Madden 04. That's its own legacy right there. But Michael Vick had the strongest arm, arguably, in the league at the time. It wasn't the most accurate. It sometimes went a little wayward, but that thing was a freaking rocket. He had a rocket attached to his left shoulder, and he just let that thing rip all the freaking time. Like, there was that Gatorade or Nike commercial back in the day where he throws it out of the Coliseum. That commercial might be real. He might have actually done that. I don't really know. But again, the electric factor that he had, explosiveness at the quarterback position, we never saw up to that point. Yes, we had mobile quarterbacks like Steve Young, Randall Cunningham, Fran Tarkington. Like, we had quarterbacks that could move, but nothing like Michael Vick. He was an anomaly at that time. And getting him, when you had the 5th overall pick, the Chargers couldn't get a deal done with him, so you trade with the Chargers. Now, the Chargers came out pretty good. LaDainian Tomlinson, Drew Brees. Pretty good haul for Michael Vick. Also got Tim Dwight in there, but Vick was just special with Atlanta. And he became a better quarterback, a pure quarterback with the Philadelphia Eagles. But in regards to just being the dude, he was that guy down in Atlanta. And the next guy I got on here, I kind of struggled picking out the next couple of guys, but the next guy on here is the guy he replaced in Chris Chandler. Went to a Super Bowl in the 90s, signed a nice little extension after that Super Bowl, but in the 2000s, the era that we're talking about here, he wasn't that great comparatively to what he did in the 90s. Like, he had 2 seasons in the 2000s, he had 26 touchdowns and 26 interceptions. Like, I think a lot of people like him for what he did in the 90s, but that 2000s run wasn't great. And again, the antithesis of Michael Vick in regards to being a football player. So having Vick follow him was kind of funny in that way, but yeah, just not the greatest in the 2000s versus the 90s, but he does deserve a spot on this list. And the final guy on here is Matt Schaub. I mean, this is a guy that was a really reliable backup. When you don't really have other quarterbacks in there, and if you take out Vick and you take out Matt Ryan, I mean, you could go with like Michael Penix in there if you want to like go towards the future or something. That I'm sure a lot of people would have loved to have Kirk Cousins in here had he been better than what he was last year. But apart from those two guys, there's not really a lot of great quarterbacks that played for the Falcons in the 2000s. Chris Redmond could have been a guy. Joey Harrington, Byron Leftwich was in there. Desmond Ridder, obviously, and there was better than Lamar Jackson. But Matt Schaub was just a consistent, reliable backup from Virginia. So we had a Virginia Tech quarterback as a starter and a Virginia dude as a backup. Just a very consistent guy. Whenever he was needed to go in, he could make plays for you. He also backed up Matt Ryan after his time with the Texans and Raiders was done with. Like, you really just couldn't ask for a better player to have for a backup. And also with the success he had in Houston, having that as a backup quarterback I think was very valuable. So he comes in as the final Mount Rushmore piece. Next team on here is the Carolina Panthers. This team is new, relatively speaking, compared to the other teams we talked about. 1995 they were founded, but obviously the first one's Cam Newton. MVP, got them to a Super Bowl, was one of the best players in the NFL, one of the most physically gifted quarterbacks ever. Cam Newton was the guy. Like, everybody loved Cam Newton for the most part. A lot of people really like Cam Newton. Some people found him frustrating. Obviously got the no dive thing against the Denver Broncos where he didn't dive on the football, but just a big dude. Superman, all that stuff, did the dab and all that great stuff. Like, everybody loved to watch Cam Newton to a certain extent. I thought there was times where he could be mildly frustrating with his accuracy at times, but when everything was synced up, when everything was clicking, there wasn't a lot of things you could do to stop Cam Newton when he was at his best. And he just got beat up His body ended up failing him at the end of the day, but great quarterback, the greatest quarterback in Carolina Panthers history. Though I'm sure some people might mention Jake Delhomme in there. Got them to a Super Bowl as well. Has the longest play in Super Bowl history, hitting Muhsin Muhammad. He also talked shit to Rodney Harrison while he was running down the field, but getting him from the Saints and not really expecting a whole lot from him to, at that time, being the greatest quarterback in franchise history. Again, not a lot of stuff to work on there in regards to the quarterbacks that they had before him, but Jake Delhomme definitely exceeded expectations in his time in Carolina. Like, he spent 7 years in Carolina, was a Pro Bowler in 05, just a very consistent, just a good quarterback. Just a good quarterback. Nothing flashy, nothing fantastic, but he was just a good quarterback throughout his time in Carolina. And the next guy on here, again, struggled here a little bit. I put Steve Berline in here. He only started one season in the 2000s. I mean, he was the guy in the 90s for a little bit. They had Kerry Collins. He was the first draft pick by the team. But Steve Berline, I have here as the next guy after Newton and Delhomme. Like, the dude was sacked 62 times in 2000. I feel like I got to give him some credit here. And I know it was the 90s. So it's probably not good for me to bring this up. But he was the first Panthers quarterback in franchise history to throw for 4,000 yards. Does that carry over? I don't know. And he did throw over 5 touchdowns in a game against the Saints in 2000, so maybe that's there for him. Maybe that. I could realistically throw Bryce Young in here. I really wanted to throw Bryce Young in here, but for sake of, like, fun, just to joke around a little bit, because we like to joke around here, I put Kyle Allen because the NFL media, when Kyle Allen first started in Carolina, tried to gaslight us into thinking that he was going to be a good quarterback, and I stood firm that he was not going to be a good quarterback, and I was proven right. Now, obviously, there's differing opinions about that because he was undrafted, surprisingly left Houston early to go to the NFL, so maybe he exceeded expectations like we talked about with Case Keenum before, but he just wasn't very good. And in that first little bit with the Carolina Panthers, people thought in the media that he could actually be a semi-decent quarterback at this level. Like, through his first 5 starts, he had 9 touchdowns and 0 interceptions with 5 wins. Like, that's a pretty good start to your career, but then it teetered off after that. He had 2-3 interception games. He had 1 4 interception game. I think he finished with 17 touchdowns and 16 interceptions like that. Having a 9-0 lead on versus touchdowns and interceptions, to closing that up to between 1 and it's 17 and 16, that's not great. But again, for the hype, for that little tiny bit, I shouldn't say like massive hype because it is the Panthers, but they did try to tell us that he was going to be a good quarterback. So I am going to throw him on here. Bryce Young probably should be on here. They have Vinny Testaverde's also in there. Derek Anderson was a longtime backup for Cam Newton in Carolina as well. Bills legend, so love Derek Anderson. So yeah, that's the Carolina Panthers list. Next team on here is the New Orleans Saints. Easy one to start off is Drew Brees. I mean, for what he did for that city, going to the Saints, their first year back in the Superdome post Katrina, 5 5,000-yard passing seasons. 5 5,000-yard passing seasons with the Saints. This is a dude that apparently couldn't throw because his shoulder was so messed up. At least that's what the Dolphins led us to believe. And to what he did, again, but not just for the team, but for the city, providing that hope in there as well. Got them to a Super Bowl, won a Super Bowl against the Indianapolis Colts. You can talk about Bounty Gate and all that great stuff, but for what Drew Brees was and represented, you couldn't really ask for more from a quarterback. And every single quarterback I could talk about, there's not one that you could say really changed the perspective of a team in a city than what Drew Brees did at that point in time. Like, when he retired, he was the all-time leader in passing yards and passing touchdowns. Like, Drew Brees is just awesome. Drew Brees is awesome. The next guy on here is Aaron Brooks. He was the starting quarterback for the team that was bouncing around the NFL. Like, they were kind of like the Harlem Globetrotters to a certain extent, like playing at different arenas each week. Like, they played at San Antonio. They had a home game in the Giants Stadium. They played at Baton Rouge at Tiger Stadium. Like, the Superdome was just done. Like, from Hurricane Katrina, and Aaron Brooks was the guy there. He was a 5-year starter with the Saints, drafted out of Virginia by the Green Bay Packers. Then in 1999, they traded him to the Saints. Cousin of Michael Vick, so he had like the Falcons-Saints rivalry with Vick and Aaron Brooks, like the cousins playing each other. Like, he was a good quarterback, like 4 straight 20-plus touchdown seasons, was a Pro Bowler in I think 2002 as well, and he's a Saints Hall of Fame inductee, so I have to put him on here, especially with the way, I know they went 13-3, or 3-13, sorry, in his final year as the starter, but the way they had to bounce around the league just to play home games, and San Antonio was trying to court them the entire time, I think that was big for him, so I give him some props for that. But yeah, good quarterback, just not anywhere near Drew Brees, nowhere near Drew Brees' level. And then the next guy on here is Taysom Hill, that jack of all trades, master of none. I remember seeing stuff where people are talking about like, Lamar Jackson is a poor man's Taysom Hill, or Taysom Hill is the Saints version of Lamar Jackson. Like, they're not even close. He's only got 6 more passing touchdowns than LaDainian Tomlinson in his career. But again, like we talked about with some of the other teams, if you're narrowing it down to 2000s, there's not a lot of great quarterback options here. Like Drew Brees and Aaron Brooks. I'm definitely not throwing Derek Carr in there. I think the entire city wanted his head on a spike the entire time he was freaking down there. It didn't even seem like his own teammates liked him down there. Like, there's just not a lot of great quarterbacks to play for the Saints. And it was Aaron Brooks, then Brees, and then a line of people after that. You could throw in, like, maybe you want to put Chase Daniel in there, Mark Brunell, but Taysom Hill is a good football player. Nothing like otherworldly or anything like that. He's an all right at best quarterback. That's being nice, but he does provide a spark for the team, so I do want to throw him on there. And the final guy on here, as I talked about, not very great pickings here. I did choose Jameis Winston because for 1 year, after Brees retired, it looked like Jameis Winston had a nice little career resurgence going. I think he had like 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions through like, I can't remember the exact number of games, but it looked like he was on the up and up. And then he tears his ACL. And then we just never saw that same Jameis Winston after that. So, but I think he does deserve, I think out of all the other options, again, Mark Brunell, Chase Daniel, if you want to throw in Derek Carr, that's your prerogative. Then you also got like maybe Tyler Shuck could be in there. Maybe Spencer Rattler could be in there. Maybe someone I'm completely forgetting about. But those are my Mount Rushmore for Saints quarterbacks. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tom Brady starts it off. I mean, he's the greatest quarterback in Tampa Bay Buccaneers history. The second he took a snap for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he was the greatest quarterback in franchise history because the Bucs, kind of similar to the Bears, but to not the same extent, have a horrific quarterback history. Like, they drafted Vinny Testaverde, thought he'd be the guy. They gave him his number 14 that he wore at Miami. He never really worked out in Tampa Bay. Had a good career, more so with the Jets, but you look at Vinny Testaverde, you look at Steve, they had Steve Young, they had Doug Williams, like they had good quarterbacks, they just never worked out in Tampa Bay. And Tom Brady went down there, got them over the hump, got them to a Super Bowl, and, you know, led the league in passing yards, broke the NFL record for attempts and completions in a season. Like, it's just Tom Brady. Beat the Bills in that time frame as well, so I don't want to talk about it too much there, but Tom Brady definitely is on here. Baker Mayfield's another guy that is definitely on here. Career resurgence out the ass. Like we talked about Jameis Winston before. Out the freaking ass for a career resurgence. Like, I remember when Tom Brady retired, they signed Baker Mayfield. And going into that season, you're like, your quarterbacks are Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. And Baker Mayfield's stock was at an all-time low. Like, you just got cut from the Panthers. You went to the LA Rams. You had a nice little bump there with the Rams. But, man, the last time we saw you got traded or cut from the Browns, I can't remember. They replaced you with Deshaun Watson and played for a freaking year. They were willing to sit on an 11-13 game suspension because they wanted you out of town so bad. And you go to the Panthers, request to get cut or got cut there, go to the Rams, and then you sign with the Bucs. No one was really expecting anything. And now the Bucs are one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL. Yes, he led the league in interceptions last year, but he also had 41 passing touchdowns to that. Had a $100 million contract, back-to-back division titles. Baker Mayfield definitely deserves a spot on this Mount Rushmore, as does Brad Johnson, as he was the guy that helped the Bucs get to their first Super Bowl. Yes, their defense was very good. I mean, you got freaking like Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks, John Lynch, Rondé Barber. Like, you had an insane defense, but Brad Johnson kind of tied it all in together. Brad Johnson was a very solid quarterback with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers during that time period. In that season, had 22 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, which was a franchise record at the time. He did end up breaking his own franchise record by throwing 26 the next season, but he was benched in 2004 after going 0-4. He was like 4-11 his last 15 starts or like that. And then I think he got cut and then went back up to the Minnesota Vikings where he was before. But for that short period, Brad Johnson he probably was the greatest quarterback in Tampa Bay Buccaneers history. And the final guy I got in here is Jameis Winston. Was a Pro Bowler, and it's kind of ironic having him as you can remember the video a few weeks ago where it was like the worst number 1 overall pick of the past decade or however many years we did in there. Like, it's kind of funny that that's where it was, but the Buccaneers, again, don't really have the greatest quarterback history. Like, you look at Jeff Garcia could be mentioned in there as he came down there for a short period of time. You also got Ryan Fitzpatrick, Josh Freeman, Brian Griese. Like, you have there's not really a lot of great quarterbacks in there. Jameis Winston did have a 5,000-yard season, but it was also the first 30-30 season in NFL history. Did make a Pro Bowl again. His rookie year, was the number 1 overall pick out of Florida State. It's just, He's not great. He's fun. I didn't think we'd mention him on here twice. Could we mention him on here a third time with the Giants? We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I have to put Jameis Winston on there for the Buccaneers. Moving on to the next division, North, South, East. We got the NFC East. We got the Dallas Cowboys, starting with Dak Prescott. Was not supposed to be where he is right now. It was Tony Romo got hurt, and then Kellen Moore got hurt, and then he came in, had a fantastic rookie year, took away Rookie of the Year, was a 4th-round draft pick out of Mississippi State, and ended up winning Rookie of the Year, and turning into one of the better quarterbacks in the league, came second in the MVP voting last year, was a 3-time Pro Bowler, was also second-team All-Pro selection. Like, he's a good quarterback. He's not like a elite quarterback, even though he's paid like it, but he is a good quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. The guy who replaced Tony Romo is next on this list. I know there's a lot of Cowboys fans out there that struggled with moving on from Tony Romo, because a lot of Cowboys fans like Tony Romo. And Tony Romo kind of divides opinions now, as he did as a player. As a broadcaster, he now divides opinions. As a player, he divided opinions. Because like, oh, he's never going to get over the hump. But again, like we talked about Dak, he was not supposed to be where he was. Like, he was an undrafted guy out of Northern Illinois, or out of Eastern Illinois, and he was a combine thrower. He wasn't invited to the combine as a quarterback. He was invited to the combine as a thrower for the receivers. He was not a quarterback at the combine. And the Broncos tried to bring him in, but he ultimately went down to the Dallas Cowboys. I think Sean Payton was the OC. He was also an Eastern Illinois guy. So he went down there, had a chance to play. Drew Bledsoe is down there, who's also on this list, but I'll talk about Drew Bledsoe in here in a little bit. And Tony Romo took over the job and became one of the better quarterbacks for the Dallas Cowboys in their history. And I know they have great quarterbacks in there. You got like Roger Staubach, Troy Aikman. Like, they have great quarterbacks in there. But Tony Romo is one of the better quarterbacks in Dallas Cowboys history, which is not something that was expected of him when he first got to the team. Like, the franchise record holder in passing yards and touchdowns, 4-time Pro Bowler, was a first-team All-Pro selection as well. Like, he was a solid quarterback. The playoff stuff, that's its own thing. The fumble on the extra point, that's its own thing as well. But Tony Romo was a good quarterback for the Cowboys. And Drew Bledsoe, as I talked about, is the other quarterback on this, or the next quarterback on this list, brought over from the Buffalo Bills. We talked about that weird departure from Buffalo in the last video we did. And he only played 2 seasons in Dallas, but had 23 touchdowns, 15 interceptions his first year as the starter. And in the second season, he had 7 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Again, got replaced by Tony Romo. But Drew Bledsoe, he looked like he could be the guy. Bill Parcells was the head coach there, had him in New England as well, so he was going to be the guy for the Cowboys, And yeah, just ended up retiring after his second year with the Cowboys, and Tony Romo, again, like we talked about, replacing him ultimately. And then the final guy I got on here is Cooper Rush. Reliable backup, as we've talked about before. Now, he started 14 games across 7 seasons. This past season with Dak Prescott getting hurt, had 12 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. I think is a career for the Cowboys, 20 touchdowns, 10 picks. Comparatively to the other quarterbacks the Cowboys have had during the 21st century, we're not really picking a whole lot of great options here. Like Kellen Moore, Quincy Carter is in there, Ben DiNucci for the memes, and Ryan Leaf, Vinny Testaverde, John Kitna, like Andy Dalton. Who are we throwing in there? Like, I think Cooper Rush, for the time he spent in Dallas, 7 years there, 12 touchdowns this past season, 20 touchdowns in total. He's in Baltimore now, but I think he definitely deserves a spot in this Mount Rushmore for Dallas Cowboys quarterbacks of the 21st century. And then moving on to the next team, the New York Giants. This one's going to piss some people off, but Daniel Jones is on the Mount Rushmore for New York Giants quarterbacks in the 21st century. And they didn't like him from the freaking jump. They hated his ass from the jump because of the whole Dwayne Haskins situation. They wanted Dwayne Haskins, who was drafted 15th of the Washington football team at that point in time. But I remember Max Kellerman going on ESPN the next day after the draft, lambasting the Giants for picking Daniel Jones. And he was a meme, for the most part. Derpy Dimes, Vanilla Vic, all that great stuff. But he had moments, not enough moments to warrant a 4-year, $160 million contract, no, but he did have some moments with the New York Giants. Like, he was the first Giants quarterback to throw for 2,500 and rush for over 400 yards. He holds multiple New York Giants football records. He was a monster in that game against the Vikings in the playoffs, which led him to get the contract. But again, I don't think a lot of Giants fans really like him just because of the fact the draft wasn't how they wanted it to go, and they chose him over Saquon Barkley. Now he's not even on the freaking team, got cut midway through last season. But I do think he deserves a spot on this list. But again, it's more of the options that we're lacking here than anything. But the guy he replaced, Eli Manning, no conversation here. The greatest quarterback in New York Giants history, one of 6 players in NFL history to have 2 Super Bowl championships and 2 Super Bowl MVPs. No doubt, Hall of Famer. You look at those playoff runs. You look at those playoff runs that Eli Manning had and tell me that he doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. Yes, I know the defense was great. You had like Michael Strahan, Justin Tuck, Osi Umenyiora. Like, you had some great players on those defense. Don't get it twisted. But he stepped up when he needed to step up for the New York Giants in both of those Super Bowl runs. Like, in those 2 runs, 15 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. In 2 playoff runs in 8 games, 15 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. They started off in the wild card game each of those 2 seasons. And he holds the NFL record for completions, attempts, and yards in the 2011 for a single playoff run in the 2011 playoffs. Like, I know he wasn't like, he was up and down at times as the regular season quarterback, but for the playoffs, Eli Manning was that guy. And people talk about the David Tyree catch. Let's talk about how Eli Manning has evaded the blitz in the first place to get that ball off to David Tyree. The best throw, though, was to Mario Manningham in the second Giants-Patriots Super Bowl down the far sideline. Go up and look at that throw. Like, Eli Manning deserves a spot on this list, obviously. He's the greatest quarterback, again, in Giants history, and he really no conversation here. The other Giants quarterback that got to him in the Super Bowl, though, not as highly regarded as Eli, and that's Kerry Collins. Kerry Collins was the starting quarterback for the team that got absolutely ass-blasted by the Baltimore Ravens in 2000 Super Bowl. They lost 34-7. He threw 4 interceptions in that game. So not great. Not the greatest stat line of all time. But he did throw for 4,000-plus yards in 2002. And he did have 22 touchdowns in that 2000 season. But he wasn't consistent. His accuracy waned on him at times, but he put up some decent numbers for here and there. But moving on from him was a smart decision because it led him to Eli. They also brought in Kurt Warner, who's also on this list, who's only here for 1 year again. These NFC teams have very long-standing quarterbacks. I'm starting to realize that now. But Kurt Warner comes to this list not for really what he did. I mean, he only had like 6 touchdowns, 4 picks throughout his time with the Giants. He was only there for 1 year. But the amount of mentoring that he provided to Eli, I think, was quintessential for Eli's development. Definitely deserves a spot on this list when you're looking at the other options that we have. Like, you're looking at Tommy DeVito, Tommy Cutlets, and Geno Smith. Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, Jackson Dart. Who are we realistically throwing in there? David Carr was there for a hot second. Like, who are we realistically throwing in there over Kurt Warner at this point in time? Unless I'm completely forgetting somebody, which could be the case, I think that's fair that Kurt Warner is in this in this Mount Rushmore because of what he provided to Eli's development. And the Philadelphia Eagles are next on this list. This one was fairly easy. I'm not going to lie. This one was fairly easy. Yes, I did want to throw in 1 or 2 different people, but at the end of the day, it was fairly simple. Like, Jalen Hurts, Super Bowl champ, Super Bowl MVP, could have won a Super Bowl MVP with the Philadelphia Eagles when they lost to the Chiefs in the first one they went to together. He's just good. He's just a good quarterback, consistent quarterback. Doesn't really do anything like too flashy. He's not the most flashy guy in the world, but he's effective. He's efficient, and he gets the job done. And that's what they want. And he's a Super Bowl champion, so you can't really say nothing to him right now. The most dominant play in recent NFL history, the tush push, he's the main catalyst for that. I think he has like 33 touchdowns from 1 yard out since 2020 or something like that. That was weird. I didn't like how 2020. He's a good quarterback. Definitely on this list. Nick Foles, same thing. I mean, we obviously know the Big Dick Nick thing. We know the Super Bowl championship, Super Bowl MVP, Philly special. We know all that stuff. Replacing Carson Wentz for when he tore his ACL. But early on in his Philadelphia Eagles career, did have a season where he had 27 touchdowns and 2 picks. Never really reached the heights after that in regards to as a pure starter. Hey, Super Bowl championship, that legacy that he left there, the Big Dick Nick thing, the Philly special, all that great stuff, definitely gets him a spot in here. The guy who replaced Carson Wentz was he was the MVP of the league until he tore his ACL against the Rams. He was the MVP of the league. Was a second-team All-Pro in that year. He won a Super Bowl, but he was the backup because he didn't play. He had moments, like there were times where his numbers weren't, like that was his second year in the league when he was the MVP. And he had moments where you looked at like, oh, there's not a lot of quarterbacks that can make these throws or make these plays working with the players that he's working with. But then it started just going like this. And you saw him try to force the issue a little bit. We saw that a lot in Indianapolis. We saw it in Washington. Like, we just never saw that same consistent Carson Wentz. Like, there's a couple moments after that season, after he tore his ACL, but we just never got the same level of player. Yes, he was still a good quarterback in the league, but then it started to dip, and then Jalen Hurts replaced him. And then that led us to where we are with Carson Wentz right now, where he's at that what's that picture where he's wearing like 8 different teams? Like that's where we're at right now. But definitely on here. And Donovan McNabb is another guy on here. Got into a Super Bowl, lost the Patriots, obviously. Never had the greatest relationship with Philadelphia Eagles fans. I mean, he was booed on draft day.
The second pick, the Philadelphia Eagles select Donovan McNabb, quarterback, Syracuse University.
Drafted him 2nd overall in 1999. And the fans wanted Ricky Williams. They booed his ass. Like, they booed his ass. So that the fan relationship with Donovan McNabb was never really that great after that. But Donovan McNabb was a good dual threat quarterback for the Eagles during his time there. And he was a 6-time Pro Bowler. He holds numerous Philadelphia Eagles passing records of total yards numbers. Like, he was a good quarterback during that time period. Obviously ended up going to Washington and the Vikings, which we'd like to forget about those time periods, but he was a solid quarterback throughout his time with the Philadelphia Eagles and definitely is on this list. The throwing up in the huddle thing, conflicting stories on that. No idea if that's true or not. Donovan McNabb says it's not true. Everybody on that team says it was true. Beef with Terrell Owens in there as well, but definitely on here. Again, the Eagles one was fairly easy. Jeff Garcia, Michael Vick, they have conversation pieces in here as well. Kevin Cobb for getting hurt against the Packers was allowed Michael Vick to go in there. Vince Young for saying the Eagles had a dream team or a super team, whatever the hell he called it. But those are the main guys for the Eagles. Again, I thought that was fairly simple for Philadelphia. And the final team on the NFC East is the Washington Commanders. Jaden Daniels, NFC Championship game, broke numerous rookie records, damn near won the unanimous Rookie of the Year. I don't know if he officially did or didn't. I don't remember. But yeah, Jaden Daniels easily on this list. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because you all know what Jaden Daniels did this past year for Washington. Next guy on here, though, is Kirk Cousins, who at the time was Mr. Franchise Tag. He was not a guy that was seen to be a guy that could be their franchise guy. They liked him. I mean, they drafted him the same year. They traded up to draft RG3 at 2nd overall. RG3 is also in this list. We'll talk about him in here in a little bit. But Kirk Cousins ultimately replaced RG3 as the starter, which again, at the time seemed incredibly unlikely. Like RG3 just won the freaking Heisman Trophy. RG3 won Rookie of the Year. Put up a spectacular performance as Rookie Year. And then he tore his ACL and pretty much just destroyed his knee in that playoff game against Seattle Seahawks. It was just never the same after that, which just blows that he was never the same after that. Like his rookie season, he had 20 passing touchdowns. The following 20 games that he played, which is all he played after Washington after his rookie season, he had 20 touchdowns and 18 interceptions. Through 20 games, he had 20 touchdowns, 18 interceptions. He had 20 touchdowns and 5 picks during his rookie year. He just wasn't the same after that. And I didn't think we'd talk about RG3 at this point. I thought I was going to talk about Kirk Cousins a little bit more, but ultimately getting replaced by Kirk was not great. RG3 during the Pro Bowl a couple years ago was interviewing Kirk Cousins on the field. RG3 was working for ESPN and he's interviewing Kirk Cousins. Who would have thought that would have been the case when they both got drafted? Who would have realistically thought that would have been the case at that point? But Kirk Cousins has 3 4,000 plus yard passing seasons with Washington, has the most 4,000 yard passing seasons in franchise history. He also threw for 4,900 plus yards in 2016, which is the most in any season by a Washington football team, Commanders, Redskins quarterback. Also made a Pro Bowl. But yeah, Kirk Cousins was a solid quarterback in Washington. Coupled that into a big contract with the Vikings like we talked about before. But replacing RG3 was just not really expected, especially the way he did. And their careers just like completely flipped on their heads after RG3's rookie season. And the next guy on here is Mark Brunell. Mark Brunell led a team in Washington. So he came up from Jacksonville, was initially the starter, battled some hamstring issues, got benched for Patrick Ramsey. Patrick Ramsey then gets benched, and Mark Brunell couples that into like a little tiny bit of a career resurgence. Like, he ended up winning 2005 Comeback Player of the Year, 20 plus touchdowns to 10 interceptions. Like, he was a good quarterback for Washington until Jaden Daniels this past year and this year's Washington Commanders team. That was the last playoff win the Commanders Redskins football team had. 2005. That was the last playoff win they had until this past season. 20 years it took them to get a playoff win, and Mark Brunell was the last guy to do so. He wasn't the same quarterback that we saw early on in his Jacksonville days, but he was still a solid enough quarterback at that point in time, and ultimately got replaced by Jason Campbell, who they drafted the first round in 2005. But in that little bit, he wasn't there for that long, but that little tiny bit was a good quarterback for Washington. And that's my Mount Rushmore for them. You could also like Alex Smith. We talked about Jason Campbell in there. Patrick Ramsey we just talked about as well. Also got Taylor Heineke. Ryan Fitzpatrick was in that conversation. Brad Johnson. And like, there's other guys, but Mark Brunell I would have on this final list on that Mount Rushmore. And moving on to the final division, North, South, East, West, NFC West, sorry. We got the Arizona Cardinals, and Kyler Murray is the first one here. And we're talking about athlete, best athlete in the NFL. Pound for pound, Kyler Murray might be the best athlete in the NFL. I mean, let's not get it twisted. This guy was the 9th overall pick in the Major League Baseball draft. Like, the drama regarding, like, will Kyler Murray choose to play baseball? Will Kyler Murray go to play football? Heisman Trophy winner at Oklahoma. Cliff Kingsbury's coming in as the head coach, but they just drafted they trade up to get Josh Rosen last year. They wouldn't move on for Josh Rosen that quick. Cliff Kingsbury said that Josh Rosen is his guy, so why would they move on for him? Even though Cliff Kingsbury back in the day said he would draft Kyler Murray first overall, they have Josh Rosen. And ultimately, cooler heads prevailed. Kyler Murray got drafted by the Cardinals, and Kyler Murray really kept Cliff Kingsbury in the job a lot longer than what he should have been. because the only thing Cliff Kingsbury had is that he had a relationship with Kyler Murray. That was it. And Kyler Murray balled out for the Cardinals once upon a time, was an MVP candidate. I think that kind of gets lost on people. Kyler Murray is an insanely talented quarterback. Yes, he can be frustrating at times, but when everything's clicking for Kyler Murray, he is one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. And that's not me exaggerating here. Kyler Murray, I think, is one of the better quarterbacks in the league when everything's clicking. Multiple-time Pro Bowler in there as well. I'm excited to see what he does this year because the Cardinals have, what you saw the turnaround from when he wasn't there to when he came back. When he tore his ACL, they struggled. He came back, and now they're seen as a team that can push back towards the playoffs. So we'll see how they does this year. And the next guy on here, we have Carson Palmer. Had a really nice career resurgence with the Arizona Cardinals. Obviously got traded to the Raiders in the greatest trade in football, and then went down to Arizona and had multiple 4,000 plus yard passing seasons. Like his 4,000 plus yard seasons is a franchise record, and he threw over 4,600 yards and 35 touchdowns with only, I think, 11 interceptions in 2015, sorry. Like Carson Palmer was awesome. He was awesome in Arizona, and they had a 13-3 record when he was there. Didn't do anything in the playoffs, but Carson Palmer, again, that career resurgence was really nice to see. And while we're on the feel-good train, Kurt Warner is also on here. Got them to their first and only Super Bowl. They were one of the oldest franchises in the NFL, never been to a Super Bowl until Kurt Warner got there. Was brought in to be the starter, struggled early on, put in Josh McCown. Then they had Matt Leinart, drafted him in 2006. Matt Leinart's the starter. Matt Leinart struggles, and then Kurt Warner comes back and takes his job again from Matt Leinart. And then we see another career resurgence from Kurt Warner, whose career we thought was pretty much done after his time with the Giants, getting benched for McCown, got the job back. They got benched for Matt Leinart. And it was like, oh, it's done now. And then he had a fantastic end to his career, like 3,400 yards plus passing, 27 touchdowns in 2007. Like that little boost was like, okay, he's back. We got the dude back. Like in that Super Bowl run, he had 11 passing touchdowns in that playoffs, 16 playoff passing touchdowns throughout his time with the Arizona Cardinals. His next season, which was his last one in 2009, he had 3,700 yards passing with 26 touchdowns. And I completely forgot. I skipped over his Super Bowl year. For some stupid reason. But he had 4,500 yards passing and 30 touchdowns on the year the Cardinals went to the Super Bowl. Like Kurt Warner, that career, we keep saying career resurgence, but this one was like, oh, his career's done. Goes to the Giants, backs up Eli Manning. Comes to the Cardinals as the starter, gets benched for McCown, gets his job back, gets benched for Matt Leinart. And it's like, okay, well now Matt Leinart's a top 10 pick. He's going to be the guy going forward. And Kurt Warner retakes his job and balls out and retires at the end of the 2009 season. They get blown out by the Saints in the playoffs, but hey, gotta love Kurt Warner in there. And the final guy on here is Jake Plummer. Again, we're not really dealing with a whole lot of great quarterbacks for the Arizona Cardinals here. Like, he was drafted in 1997 by the Cardinals, only had 3 seasons in the 2000s, and he started 46 games, but he had 49 passing touchdowns to 55 interceptions. Like, he had more interceptions than touchdowns in 2 of those 3 seasons that he started. Obviously, he had a very solid, he had a solid career with the Denver Broncos, but he was mildly frustrating throughout his time with the Cardinals. But I do think he's the best option out of the next remaining guys. Yes, Josh McCown is in that conversation as well. And maybe you want to throw in Matt Leinart just for shits and giggles and stuff like that. But that would be my guy. Sam Bradford, Josh Rosen, Mike Glennon, Kevin Cobb. Maybe you want to throw in those guys. But that would be my Mount Rushmore for the Cardinals. And moving on to the next team, the Los Angeles Rams. And same thing with the Lions. We're going to start off with the same two, Jared Goff and Matt Stafford. Both those guys are on here. Jared Goff was the first pick by the new Los Angeles Rams. They were just moving to LA. He was a Cal Berkeley dude. Like, it just made all the sense in the world to draft him, and they didn't really trust him early on. Like, I remember his first game, he wasn't even dressed. Like, I think it was who was it? It was Case Keenum, Nick Foles, and then Sean Mannion, and then Jared Goff was undressed on the sideline. He had clothes on, but he wasn't in uniform on the sideline. Ultimately went on to have a very solid career with Sean McVay in there, went to an NFC Championship game, got to a Super Bowl and stuff. But the trade for Matt Stafford, that kind of pushed the Rams over the top. And I feel bad for Jared Goff for that. But hey, like we talked about the Lions, Jared Goff definitely took it with stride and has had a great end to his career, second half to his career with the Detroit Lions. But Matt Stafford, Super Bowl champion, and consistently since he's been at the Rams, a top 10 quarterback in the league. Like, we always saw that with the Detroit Lions, but now with like the wins are coupling along with that. And yeah, Matt Stafford, Jared Goff, 2 very good quarterbacks in the league today. Both teams Mount Rushmore for quarterbacks in the 21st century. And the next guy on here is Mark Bulger. Mark Bulger was the guy who replaced Kurt Warner. He was in the Brady 6. He was drafted before Tom Brady, but he did have a solid, I believe he was a 6th round pick. He was drafted by the Saints, but going to the Rams, and when Kurt Warner ended up getting hurt, he came in, and the Rams for a tiny bit didn't skip a beat. Like, he took over as the starter in 2002, was 6-1 during that time period, was a Pro Bowler in there as well. Like, the Rams offense wasn't the same as efficient with Mark Bulger versus Kurt Warner, but they dipped tremendously at the end of his career with the Rams. But for that beginning, he was a solid quarterback with the Rams, and obviously Kurt Warner's in this conversation as well. The 90s we can't count. Obviously won the Super Bowl in 99 MVP, but he did win an MVP in the 2000s, and he was the orchestrator of the greatest show on turf. They had the likes of Marshall Faulk. They had Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt, Orlando Pace, but Kurt Warner was the orchestrator behind all of that, and the greatest story in NFL history in regards to rags to riches. Like, he was on the Pack. It was the one-year starter at UNI, backup for 3 years, one-year starter at UNI, goes to the NFL with the Packers, gets cut there, goes to Hy-Vee, goes to the Barnstormers, gets a chance in NFL Europe, comes back with the Rams, is the backup there. They bring in Trent Green, who's Dick Vermeil's guy. He was like, this is the guy that's going to unlock the offense from Washington. They bring him in, gets injured in the preseason. Rodney Harrison hits him low. Kurt Warner comes in, and the rest is history. They not only rallied around Kurt Warner, they won with Kurt Warner, and that team was just so much fun to watch in the Edward Jones Dome at that point in time. But yeah, that's the Mount Rushmore for Rams quarterbacks. Moving on to the next team on here is the San Francisco 49ers. Brock Purdy, the most recent 7th highest paid quarterback in the entire NFL. Regardless of what you think about his contract or where he ranks the pantheon of NFL quarterbacks at this point in time, the 49ers, he is definitely on this list. I mean, you get them to a Super Bowl or a part in team that helps get to the Super Bowl. He doesn't do anything flashy, not in the slightest, but he doesn't turn the ball over. He puts the ball where it needs to be, and that's exactly what Kyle Shanahan wants from his quarterback. So Brock Purdy is definitely on here. The guy he replaced, Jimmy Garoppolo, is also on this list. Like, they traded a 2nd-round pick for him. Like, the whole thing was so funny is that they skipped on drafting a quarterback in 2017 because they could have, that was the Mahomes, Trubisky, Deshaun Watson draft. They weren't going to draft a guy. They were going to wait till Kirk Cousins came over in the offseason, and the Patriots were like, well, hey, we got Jimmy Garoppolo available for a 2nd-round pick if you want him. And they're like, well, shit, we'll take him. And Jimmy Garoppolo had moments, but injury prone as hell. Best abilities availability. He was rarely ever available. Missed a big time throw in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs that could have potentially changed the tide in the game. Was a solid enough quarterback during that time frame. They tried to replace him with Trey Lance. That didn't work. Then they eventually replaced him with Brock Purdy. And now, yeah, it's Garoppolo definitely is on here. Unlike the Patriots one where we tried to include him in there, he deserves a spot on this Mount Rushmore for the 49ers. Next one is Jeff Garcia. Jeff Garcia came down from Canada. He just won the Grey Cup, and I believe an MVP as well with the Calgary Stampeders. Came down to the 49ers, was going to be the backup to Steve Young. Steve Young gets a concussion and ultimately retires, and Jeff Garcia comes in and plays really, really well for the 49ers in his first few seasons with the team. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler, started 16 games, 3 of his 4 seasons of the 2000s, threw for 4,200 yards in 3,500 yards in 2001, was a solid quarterback there. Ultimately, time went on and he ended up leaving the team. But hey, for Terrell Owens beginning of his career, with Jeff Garcia balling out like that, he deserves a spot in this list. And the last spot, I struggled here. I did struggle with this pick. And obviously it was between Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick. It was between the two. I went with Kaepernick because Kaepernick was the quarterback that helped them get to the Super Bowl. Alex Smith was great when Jim Harbaugh got there. They got to an NFC Championship game, 13-3 record and all that. The resilience of Alex Smith has been shown throughout his entire career, not just with 49ers, but with the Chiefs and the Commanders after that. Like, the resilience with that is awesome. And Alex Smith overall is a better quarterback than Colin Kaepernick. That's not a discussion here. But Colin Kaepernick, when he came in as the starter, replacing Alex Smith under Jim Harbaugh, he added a new element to that offense. Like, his insane game against the Green Bay Packers in the playoffs, 181 yards rushing, was still an NFL record for quarterback rushing yards in the playoffs. And he's only one of 3 players in that game, one of only 3 players to have 2 passing touchdowns and 2 rushing touchdowns in the game. You can take that how you want, because the other 2 guys are Otto Graham and Jay Cutler. So you can take that however you want. He was a good quarterback for a short period of time with the 49ers. Obviously went to the NFC Championship game the next year lost to the Seattle Seahawks in the Michael Crabtree, Richard Sherman game. But he was a solid quarterback, really solid dual threat quarterback. Career started to dip at the end of it when Harbaugh went back to Michigan. Tom Sula came in, got benched for Gabbert. He definitely, again, you could go back and forth between Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick. They provided 2 different things to the organization. You could even think that Colin Kaepernick shouldn't have been placed as the go-to starter when Alex Smith came back from his injury. Like, you could still say that Alex Smith deserved a spot to keep that there, but Kaepernick did, again, provide another element to the offense, so I'm going to have him in that this last Mount Rushmore spot, but that's no disrespect to Alex Smith. And the final team on here, the Seattle Seahawks. Geno Smith is on here. They wrote me off, but I didn't write back. The resurgence, again, resurgence. The resurgence of Geno Smith from what he was with the Jets, then bounced around for the Giants, the Chargers, I don't remember what other teams he was on, but the Seahawks, where he was the backup there, they trade Russell Wilson to Denver, the greatest player in franchise history, and he goes in and just doesn't miss a beat. Doesn't miss anything. He's like, what the hell is this version of Geno Smith? Jets fans are like, what the hell? Where was this guy when we drafted in the second round? Like, he has 2 4,000+ yard seasons. He is 2-time Pro Bowler. He won Comeback Player of the Year as well. They traded with the Raiders this offseason. We'll see how he does over there in Las Vegas. Brought in Sam Darnold, so we'll see how he does as well. They also drafted Jalen Milroe, which I'm excited to see how he does. But Geno Smith, I never thought I would say he'd be on a Mount Rushmore quarterback for the Seahawks when he first got there, but here we are. And Russell Wilson's obviously the next one here. Super Bowl champion, got to another Super Bowl. Obviously has the Malcolm Butler interception in there, which is not ideal. But Russell Wilson, let's not forget how great he was with the Seahawks. Don't let these times at Denver and Pittsburgh sway the fact that he was a great quarterback with the Seattle Seahawks. Like, he didn't miss a game from it. Like, he was drafted in the 3rd round. They brought in Matt Flynn, like we talked about the Packers, and he started every single game his rookie year, and he started every single game until 2021. Then he missed some time in there, but he was a 10-time Pro Bowler, and it was a second-team All-Pro selection in 2019. Like, Russell Wilson, again, it's going to be a weird conversation after he retires, because people will look at, like, what have you done for me lately type thing, and look at his time in Pittsburgh and Denver and whatever he does with the Giants and go like, oh, that was Russell Wilson. No, Russell Wilson was a magician at times with the Seattle Seahawks, with no offensive line in front of him, continuing to make plays from the quarterback position. And it just sucks how the end of his career has happened, but he was a really, really, really good player in his prime in Seattle. And the guy he kind of replaced is Matt Hasselbeck. Got to the Super Bowl as well. Got traded from the Packers, because remember, he was with Mike Holmgren in the Packers, Brett Favre's backup. Holmgren comes over to the Seahawks, takes Matt Hasselbeck with him again via trade, and in 10 seasons with the team became a 3-time Pro Bowler. And he also had 7 3,000+ yard games, and he was the quarterback for the Beastquake game. So that alone puts him in here. But the final one on here, I put Tavares Jackson. Dude was a captain in a playoff game one time. Like, I gotta give respect to Tavares Jackson, but he did come in to Seattle after leaving Minnesota to be the starter. He was the guy between Hasselbeck and Russell Wilson. He was the guy in between there. He was only there for 1 year for that specific period. And he had 3,000 yards passing, 14 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, was not great. And he got cut or got released or traded or whatever, ended up going to the Bills, came back to the Seattle Seahawks and was a very reliable backup for Russell Wilson for a few seasons after he came back. So I got to give him some credit in there. You also got like Charlie Whitehurst in there, and then Trent Dilfer, Seneca Wallace, Matt Flynn, like we talked about before, who was brought in on a good contract but never did anything with that, got replaced by Russell Wilson. But that is my Mount Rushmore for NFC quarterback. I think this video is longer than the one we just did. I could be wrong when it's all said and done editing. It's longer recording wise, but we'll see how he does when it edits. But hope you all enjoyed the video. Make sure, if you did, to give this video a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below on what you feel I should change, what you liked, what you didn't like about the quarterback rankings that we did. Again, hope you enjoyed. If you did, I sincerely apologize. Try to be better next time. Make sure to check out all the links down in the description below. Subscribe, like, all that great stuff. I've been Logan Blackman, and I will see you guys later. Peace.